So in this video, we're going to take a look at how to add and subtract fractions, hopefully giving you an explanation as to why the process is what it is as well. So let's start off by having a look at some relatively simple examples. So if we have the same denominator, then we have quite an easy process to work out, because if I think about 1/5, so here is a whole split into 5 pieces, well, 1/5 is going to be that blue shaded area there. And if I add to that another 2/5, so this red is the 2 extra fifths we're adding on, well, you can see just how many different areas are shaded. There's 3 of them. So of course, our answer is going to be 3/5. So when we have this situation with the same denominator, then we could just add those numerators together. 1 plus 2 is 3, but the 5 is going to stay the same. And it's going to be exactly the same when we do some subtraction. So if in part B, for example, we have 5/6 minus 1/6, well, that will be 4/6. We take away that numerator away from that first numerator. Of course, in this case, we can then look to simplify as well. So 4/6 is the same thing as 2/3. So always remember to simplify if we can. But this is fine, but of course breaks down as soon as we start thinking about adding fractions or subtracting fractions with different denominators. So to consider this question, let's have a think about 1/4 plus 2/5. So if I have a diagram here, let's imagine what 1/4 looks like. So 1/4 is going to be that shaded area there. And then if we think of another diagram perhaps underneath, well, if we consider our whole amount and we have 2/5, so here we have a pretty poor picture, but one nonetheless of a whole split into 5 pieces. Well, 2/5 is going to look like that. So how are we going to be able to add these 2 different amounts when they have different denominators? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look to split both those 2 shapes into something new. So for example, that red shape with the 1/4 split, let's think about splitting that now into 5 extra pieces. So what I've done there is I now have 20 different boxes, and I can see that my 1/4 is exactly the same thing as 5/20. And in the same way underneath, let's imagine splitting the 2/5 into 4 different boxes, right? Okay, so now I've still got 20 over there, right? I've split it into the same amount of pieces. I've got 20 pieces. Well, 2/5 is going to be the same. I can count 8/20. So now I can see that if I have 5/20 and 8/20, well, now I'm in a position where I can add those numbers together. If I was going to add in those 8/20, okay, I could include them in this diagram here perhaps. So there is going to be my 5/20 plus my 8/20. I am going to have 13/20. Now, from there, let's see if we can do the same thing with a subtraction, and let's try to remove that diagram now and look and see if we can find a technique to do this quite quickly and simply. So what did we do? Well, we took those denominators and we tried to find a common multiple of 3 and 4. So the best way of doing that in this case is to think about multiplying the 3, or I should say the 2/3 by 4, and multiplying the 1/4 by 3. And what that's going to do, it's going to create this situation that we're looking for, where both those fractions are represented with 2 different fractions that have the same denominator. So 2 times 4 is 8, 1 times 3 is 3. So this 2/3 minus 1/4 is equivalent to 8/12, take away 3/12, which now we can do. That is going to be 5/12, and that one can't be simplified, and that's our process. Now, let's see if we can apply this again to some mixed numbers, and the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to rewrite them as top-heavy fractions. So 1 1/8 is going to be 9/8, and 3 1/3 is going to be 10/3. So what we've got here is 9/8 plus 10/3. From here, we need to create that same denominator. So 8 and 3 have a common multiple, which is 24. Okay, 24 is in that 8 times table and the 3 times table. So I'm multiplying here by 3, multiplying here by 8. So 9 times 3 is 27. So I'm going to have 27 over 24. And 8 times 10 is 80. So this one will become 80 over 24. And now I can add them because I've got that situation where I've got the same denominator. So 27 plus 80 is 107. So I have 107 over 24. Now, the only challenging thing with this question is we really need to try to write this again as a mixed number. So I kind of think about counting in 24s. So I could say, well, 2 24s is 48. So that means that 4 24s is going to be 96. So I'm going to have 4 wholes, which brings me up to 96. And then I'm going to have 11 left over. So I think our final answer here is 4 and 11 over 24. Okay, that is a good method to use to help us to understand how to add and subtract fractions, even when we've got mixed numbers.